Sancocho is a soup or stew from the Caribbean and South America that's made with meats and root vegetables. Legend has it that this dish came from the Canary Islands and is the Canarian interpretation of cocido, a Spanish stew consisting of large chunks of meats, beans, and root vegetables. Sancocho was later brought to Puerto Rico when Canarians were transferred there as slaves. Sancocho made the perfect meal for farmers and laborers because the cuts of meat used are relatively cheap and the root vegetables kept them fuller longer. Today, Sancocho is the perfect hangover meal. So let's make some. Over here I have huge chunks of beef short ribs and chicken breast that I chopped up bone-in. Then over here I have cumin, garlic, paprika, turmeric, oregano, and salt. And we're just gonna dump that all in here. You can either cover this and marinate it in the refrigerator for an hour, or you could just use it right now. In a pot, add some oil and start cooking your meat. While we wait for our meat to cook a little bit, that's gonna cook in there for about 15 minutes. Let's get started on our vegetables. Here I have malanga. Malanga is very similar to taro. Next, ñame. Ñame is pretty much a tropical yam. Boniato is a sweet potato, but not as sweet as yellow sweet potato. Next, we have yuca. It's best to cut the yuca into smaller pieces before peeling. Use a knife to cut along the lining under the waxy outer layer. Calabaza is a tropical pumpkin. It's a lot smoother and less hairy than regular pumpkin. Green plantain. Use a sharp knife to cut along the groove and then use a butter knife to peel off the skin. Cut the malanga, ñame, and boniato into 2-inch chunks and cut the green plantain on a diagonal. And then throw everything except for the calabaza into cold water to keep from darkening. Next, add half a cup of a lager into the pot and simmer for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, we are going to remove the chicken and cover it and place it on the side. Next, we're ready for some broth. 4 cups of beef stock, 4 cups of chicken stock, 3 cups of water. Most people use bouillon cubes, but I opt not to use it because it contains MSG. So I prefer using homemade or organic beef stock and chicken stock. Okay, now let's prep our sofrito. Dice up a green bell pepper, Spanish onion, and then mince a few cloves of garlic. Next, toss your sofrito and pumpkin into the pot. And then let's add 3 bay leaves. Okay. So the sofrito and the pumpkin will start to melt into the broth, which in turn will start to thicken it as we continue to cook. Bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to lower the heat down to medium and let it simmer for about 30 to 45 minutes. And then we're going to add in the rest of our vegetables. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes, and as you can see, the pumpkin pretty much all melted, and peppers and onions are very soft. Next, I drained and washed all of our veggies, so now we can start tossing that in. Over here I have culantro. Culantro smells and tastes very similar to cilantro, except it's a bit earthier. This will help add a beautiful freshness to the pot. Chop it up and add it in. Now I'm going to give the vegetables a 15-minute head start before I add the chicken back in. After you've added the chicken, it's time to add in the corn. And this is probably a good time to check the seasoning, just in case you need a little more salt. Ooh, it does need more salt. A healthy amount of it, as a matter of fact. The first time I had Sancocho, I was about 9 years old. I went to a birthday party of a friend that lived down the block from me, and her family was from Trinidad. And I remember it was served a bowl of soup, and there were like chunks of corn sticking out of the bowl, and I thought like, whoa, I've never seen corn in soup before. That's so strange. And then I tried it, and I was just like, holy shit, this is good. Fast forward years later, I was introduced to an assortment of different Sancocho from various different countries. And I think that's one of the best soups ever. Anyway, here I am today. many years later, recreating this magical soup that I had. Alright, so we are pretty much done with this sancocho. Let the corn boil in here for a few minutes, and then once the other vegetables are softened, then we're ready to serve. I love to top it with, you already know it, cilantro. Squeeze some lime over this. And that's it. This is the infamous sancocho. It's time. Let's taste the broth. Oh, yeah. Check out this meat. Look at how tender it is. Crazy. Let's have some of that. I like to grab a spoonful of the rice and dip, and then pick up some meat and vegetable. Wow. This is so hearty, so flavorful, so satisfying. This soup is great for when you're expecting a lot of people to come over for dinner. Because, I mean, look at the size of this pot. You can literally feed an entire family for less than $20. It's insane. So the next day when you heat it up, a lot of the vegetable would have already melted and the broth would have thickened up a little bit. If you want the broth to be a little more loose, then just add in cups of boiled water one by one until you get the consistency that you like. Anyway, you can find this complete recipe on my website at friesandthighs.com. I'll see you later.